Hello and welcome to this edition of Peake Life. Today we are talking emergency prep and specifically flood insurance. I've got the boss here with me, Robb Braidwood with Emergency Management. Robb, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. You know, if we own a home, we have insurance. We have homeowners insurance. But we may not necessarily have flood insurance, and there is a difference.
There's
talk
a huge
to me
difference.
about that.
Yeah. So homeowners insurance does not cover at all flood losses. So losses or property damage to your house or your contents due to flooding, like a flooding event, like a hurricane, a nor'easter, a heavy rain event, something like that.
Okay.
So it's one of those big misconceptions out there that people are covered and
Right.
they're not. It's a huge gap for us. And especially in Hampton Roads where we're really low lying and we can be prone to these flood events that just kind of happen out of nowhere. It's one of those things we want to promote and encourage people to get flood insurance.
Okay. And some people in Chesapeake are required to have flood insurance. You have to.
Absolutely. So if you live in a FEMA designated floodplain, what was commonly called the 100-year floodplain, you'll hear that term, and you have a mortgage on the home and it's backed by the federal government, that mortgage is, then you're required to have flood insurance.
Okay. But for those of us, I now am in Chesapeake, but outside of a flood zone. We've had some heavy rains where that water got pretty darn close to my house.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even if you're not in a flood zone, you
Highly
may want to
encourage it.
elect to get flood insurance.
Absolutely. It's what we call a preferred risk policy. So you're not required to get it. You're outside of the FEMA designated floodplain. But as we all know, water doesn't stop at some line that's drawn on a map by some engineer, up in Philadelphia. So what we want to do is encourage people to get these preferred risk policies. Reach out to a flood insurance agent, go to FloodSmart.gov and check out that website. You can get to these insurance agents and they can give you a preferred risk policy. Sometimes that insurance, it's covering about $350,000 worth of insurance, is as little as $300 to $400 a year.
Oh my
gosh. So it's
Wow.
such a good deal, and we really want to encourage people to take a look at that. In our city, one of the highest points is in the Great Dismal Swamp. So when the highest elevation in your city is in a swamp,
It's a swamp, yeah.
you might want to look at flood insurance even if you're outside of that designated area.
No, so we really are not talking like, hey, it's a really small possibility. You might get flooded. We have recent proof that you could have severe damage to your house even if you're outside of the floodplain, and that was Matthew.
Yeah, Hurricane Matthew was a perfect example of why flood insurance is a really good idea for everybody in our city. Hurricane Matthew, our flood losses in that hurricane, almost 90% of the flood damage was outside of the floodplain because of the rain. So, we had historic rain. We're talking about 30 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. That's, almost 80% of our yearly total in one 24-hour period. So we really encourage people to get this flood insurance, even if they're outside of the floodplain. It's so cheap. It's easy to do. It takes 30 days to be effective. So that's something important for somebody to understand. So if they see a hurricane coming off Africa and they call up their agent, it takes 30 days to become effective. So get out there right now, call an insurance agent and get that flood insurance.
So that's a really good point. It kind of speaks to all the emergency prep that we're trying to get people to do throughout the year. Just because it's the middle of hurricane season, that doesn't mean that everything outside of that, you should just forget about any, possibility of an emergency or of a flood.
Right.
So, they could be watching this program in the middle of winter, and it could still be a good time to look into getting that flood insurance.
Absolutely, yeah. It's never a bad time to get prepared. So we want people to be making those plans, doing those preparations. Everybody needs to have a plan at their house and what they're going to do, whether it's a tornado, a winter storm, a hurricane, a nor'easter, it doesn't matter what it is. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, your social network. Organize those situations and those relationships. What are you going to do if your house is knocked out? What are you going to do? Where are your kids going to go to school? All those things. You need to make those plans.
All those different situations that could happen. So let's talk about how people get flood insurance. Is this something that, you kind of want to shop around, find the best price, or ask, who goes through which agency, or how do you go about getting it?
Well, if you're required to get flood insurance through like the purchase of your home, for example, with your mortgage, you don't have a lot of choice really. What you're gonna find is that the mortgage company is going to kind of drive how you get that flood insurance. You can shop it around a little bit, but it's a little bit more difficult when you're buying a home. When you're going out and getting your own policy that you're not required by the federal government to have, it's very easy to shop it around. You're going to find, though, that the prices are going to be pretty similar because all this insurance is backed by the federal government. So you're not going to find a terrible amount of variety on the prices. But it's good to always shop things around.
Sure.
Basically, you call an insurance agent, they're going to get you to do what they call an elevation certificate. It shows how high your house is above the floodplain and where your first floor elevation, the first floor that you walk into, where that is in relation to the floodplain. And that kind of determines your flood risk.
Now, is that something they would get from the city? Is that
No, it's something you get from a surveyor, and your insurance agent will walk you through that.
Okay.
But if there's ever a question that somebody has about an elevation certificate, they can call Development and Permits at the City Hall and talk to them through the process and what it means on the elevation certificate and all these data points, and they can get that explanation from Development and Permits.
Okay, so those are some of the items that you need to be prepared to look for in order to get
Absolutely.
that. Okay, so let's talk, we've got flood insurance, whether it's because we're required to or because we've elected to. A storm is coming. Here it comes. Next few days, we're going to start battening down the hatches.
Right.
What should we do to prepare for the fact that we may get flooded and we may need to submit that to insurance? Is there anything we can do ahead of time to be prepared for that? Well,
so what we always want people to do is in sort of a blue sky day like it is today, where it's beautiful, before hurricane season, take a look at your insurance policy. Not only your homeowner's insurance, but also your flood insurance policy. Kind of go through that, understand what your deductibles are and things like that. But then as the storm's approaching, and sort of yearly, what we recommend people doing is videotaping their house. So you have photographic evidence of, hey, this is what the house looked like, things like that. Because what an insurance agent's going to do, just like when you get in a car accident, they're going to want to know, well, is that scratch there before or not? And so there's a lot of that back and forth. So the more evidence and documentation you have to provide to an adjuster, the faster things are going to go. There's also a lot of information on FloodSmart.gov about things you can do to expedite your flood claim. Okay. So there's forms that you can fill out right now. What kind of jewelry do you have at the house? The cost of your television that's hanging on the wall. All that stuff with those receipts. If you preload all that stuff, your claim is going to go so much faster than everybody else's.
Wow. Because it can take a while for you to see anything.
It can take a long time. It can take 180 days sometimes after a storm.
Oh my gosh.
So,
now, does that depend on the severity of the storm in your area? Is it just like a matter of volume?
It's a matter of adjusters, insurance adjusters. There just aren't enough insurance adjusters in the country.
Sure.
And so if we had 2 or 3 hurricanes all at the same time like we did last season, where you had Florida, Texas, all these other states hit all at the same time, there's just not enough adjusters to go around. So if you can make that claim process faster by pre-filling out that paperwork, you're going to be really, really happy.
Okay. So we want people to, first off, go to, FloodSmart.gov?
FloodSmart.gov.
Educate yourself a little bit.
Educate yourself. Ready.gov for some information about how you get prepared during hurricane season and get that flood insurance. Call that local flood insurance agent.
Be prepared because it's going to take at least 30 days.
It's going to take at least 30 days to go in effect.
If you're outside of the floodplain, it could be
super cheap.
Few $100 a year.
Yeah,
that's
a year.
Amazing. And then that's going to cover you several thousands.
For $350,000 worth of coverage. It's crazy.
That's the best deal you're going to find on anything ever.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share with us, Rob?
No, great being here.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for being here, Rob. Really good info. So we're going to send people to FloodSmart.gov. Look for information about flood insurance, and you can also find more information on the city's website, cityofchesapeake.net. And thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Peake Life. We'll see you next time.